Alright, so today I am going to start the stream in the middle of a game where I suck. And I'm getting killed. I'm level 3. Other people have already gotten their ult and then some. This guy is level 8. And I am fucking level 3. I suck at Dota. I am a disgrace. I was so good at this game when I was 16 years old. I kicked ass at this game in 2005 and 2004. And some of 2006. Then I got a job. Then I got a life and responsibilities, and it has all been downhill since then. Now I suck. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about morals and ethics, since I got a few messages in my inbox asking about these things. And there are two reasons that morals and ethics can be bullshit. The first reason is that I feel that we've laid out these very specific rules and guidelines that don't take into context the specifics of a situation. The reason that we have this is wrong, this is right in black and white terms, is because I believe that the people who come up with this stuff, they think, and for the most part they're right, that the general population is too stupid to think for themselves as to what is right or wrong. So we need to create these specific guidelines as to what is exactly right or what is exactly wrong that people can follow. Because if people were to think for themselves, they would convince themselves that anything is right or wrong. And, you know, it's really easy to just kind of start listening to yourself and believe that everything you say or do is right. So I kind of get that to an extent. But the second issue, the one that I think is bigger, is that what's okay today is absolutely not okay tomorrow. You look back on things like rape, for instance. I mean, in the early 1900s, if you wanted to have sex and your wife did not want to have sex, and you had sex, you did not commit a crime. You did not commit a crime. In 2016, a woman could shoot her husband because he wanted to have sex and she did not, and he commenced on, commencing, and it would be totally legal. Rightfully so. In the early 1900s, there was nothing wrong with the dude doing that, and there would have been everything wrong with what the woman decided to do. Which is, it's just over time these things change. Especially, the thing that gets me is when you read these books from the early 1800s and you really start to understand the culture of the time. And you read, and it's so funny because it reads so. And the reason I'm not trying to smash on meat eaters or anything. I know that that's the way it's going to be. Because I'm not one of those vegan gains channels where I'm going to take out my fucking knife and go you're eating animals, you deserve cancer, you deserve to die, fuck you. I'm not trying to get on any of that. But what I'm saying is, I read these books every now and then, especially since I started taking the train again before I do my run home. So I have a good 10 or 15 minutes where I just read a book, read an ebook, read something on my phone. And you have these, and the ones that really get me are the ones from 20 years ago. You have these books from 20 years ago where they're talking about work culture and implementing technology in a work culture. And it's funny because they talk about it doing the most basic stuff the most basic stuff is advanced. And now it's kind of as stuff with computers has evolved over time. The average employee is expected to have a higher level of proficiency in 2016 than, let's say, in 1996. What was, black magic and pixie dust and miracles and, magic and, oh man, I'm tired. This video is going to make no sense. The stuff that was magic in 1996 is common sense in 2016. And this kind of got me thinking, I want to read more of these books that are really old, not even necessarily because I like the plot of the book. I could give two shits of a fuck less about the plot of the book, but because I like hearing what the people at the time thought was normal. That's interesting to me. For some reason, just hearing what people thought at the time was normal. And then I read these things, it's in the early 1800s, you were considered, to some extent, to be an extremist if you thought, and I'm paraphrasing, you were kind of considered to be an extremist if you thought that slavery was wrong and that the people who owned slaves were bad people. The average person, again, the average of the business people were the people who owned some slaves, but who treated them well. So, you treated your slave well, you took, you gave them decent living quarters, you gave them decent ability to go, to do some of the things that they wanted to do, but you still, again, of course, you expected them to work their ass off all day for free and not pursue any hopes or dreams or education of their own. that was considered normal, right? It was the extremists who thought that this is bullshit, this has to end, this is not the way that life should be lived, people deserve freedom, blah, blah, blah. We're all people, all that stuff. You were considered an extremist. And that kills me. And then the reason that kills me is because, again, I'm not trying to harp on the meat eaters or anything like that, but like you read this stuff and it's like, I only eat free range, whatever. I only, the good people are the ones, I only eat the animals that were killed ethically. And that's just one of those things that I fundamentally can't get my head around. Like how do you ethically kill somebody that you don't have to kill for any good reason? Because, like, I stopped eating the stuff and I'm still here. So there's not like a need for it, right? Like, so what is it? Where are the ethics behind? Like, I mean, how can I ethically stab you? How can I ethically electrocute you up your ass so that I can turn you into a fur jacket? Or like a fur or whatever, or a fur coat, or I forget what animal it is. There's some animal where they shove something up its ass and they electrocute it so that they don't fuck up the skin or the fur or whatever, or the leathers when they're trying to make it into a fashion statement. But like I don't understand how there's an ethical way of doing that. And there's like this idea that that is an ethical thing to do. I am only eating the chickens that are free range, that were allowed to run around before they were taken to a slaughterhouse where they got to smell what 1,100 other dead chickens smells like while they're scared as they're being walked to their death. Ethical. And that's the thing, like right now, that may be considered ethical. 100 years from now, maybe 1,000 years from now, they may look back on me and they may look on the fact that I went to Mazzetto and I ate meatballs when I was 25 years old and think that I should be sentenced to death for murder. But right now, it's totally okay that I went to Mazzetto and I ate the meatballs and that I enjoyed them and I went home. So my whole point there is that ethics, morals, it just changes with time. Like slavery is okay, then it's not. Persecuting somebody because they think that the earth moves around the sun and not the other way, giving them house arrest for the rest of their life, it was a perfectly normal thing to do. Until the moment that became something that we would fight a war over just so that we don't have to deal with that kind of shit anymore. People fight wars over religion all the time for religious freedom. And, well, they didn't fight, we didn't fight a war over the sun thing. But you get my point there, even though it's the end of the day and I'm tired and I'm kind of getting some of it wrong. Man, I suck. I'm at level 6 right now. I'm afraid to see what the other people are at when they get back into the lane. You're at level 8, so I don't feel too bad. You suck. I may suck, but you suck with me. But you get the idea. I mean, there are so many things that are okay yesterday, and then they're not okay today. But they were okay yesterday. So that's why, my views on ethics and morality, it's not something that I necessarily take very seriously. But one of the stories that really got to me, one of the stories that I guess I'm going to tell here that really got me thinking about it more in terms of what I do for the world versus whether I'm following a rule, happened a few years ago. Like most stories, it's going to be long-winded and I'm going to repeat myself. And since I'm feeling particularly forgetful today, I'm going to repeat myself more than I usually do. Right as I try to get a kill steal here. Shit. No kill steal for me. I remember a few years ago, this guy comes to the store. He's got this Retina with the best processor at the time. He has a 1 terabyte SSD, 16 gigs of RAM. That shit had to have been like $3,500, $4,000, all things said and done. And he fucked it up like so many spoiled people that have parents that spend $4,000 on their luxury devices. They don't know the value of the device. They don't care about the device. They don't think much about destroying the device. And he destroyed it. And this is a motherboard that had to have been worth at least like $1,200 at the time, $1,300 or so. Just motherboard alone, because keep in mind, he decided to upgrade to the highest class processor and also have 16 gigs of RAM, and it's all soldered onto the board on this model. Oh, yeah. Die. Bam! Kill steal. I love me a kill steal. In real life, it's not okay to take credit for other people's work. It's not okay to be a Matthew Santoro. But in DOTA, Oh man, in Dota, I Santoro everybody. I love kill stealing in Dota. I make up for all of my ethical actions, ethical, great with the title of this video, in life by being as unethical as possible in Dota. I love kill stealing in Dota. It makes my day. But anyway, so this kid comes in, and hey, oh, I'm not at base. That's why I went to stash. So he comes in, and he asks for the estimate. We give him an estimate, and he decides to think about it. Then he decides that he doesn't want to fix it, but he's interested in selling it to us. And the reason that this is interesting is because there's this other girl that comes in who has a very similar machine at the same time that she has screwed up as well. And she doesn't have parents that are going to buy her new stuff. She actually bought that machine before she had a diagnosis of cancer. And she's been spending some decent money outside of what the insurance will cover to take care of her cancer. And she also wasn't able to go to work much anymore because she was taking care of her cancer. And she had a blog site, and she was talking about what it was like transitioning from regular life to having cancer, how she was dealing with it. She was commenting when to the comments that she was getting, when she was replying to the comments she was getting. And all around it was a heartbreaking story. And she couldn't afford replacing it. Her board was not one that was fixable. And this kid is saying, I'm just probably going to sell the computer to you for $50. And you have to keep in mind that this kid's parents decided to buy him a new one. Before he could even decide whether or not he wanted to fix it, his parents bought him a fucking new one. That's your reward, son. For destroying a $4,000 device, we're going to buy you a $4,400 device. Bam! Lesson learned. Great parenting. But I digress. I shouldn't get into that too much because it'll just irritate me. But that was that. So he decides he's going to sell it to us. And then he comes in, and we're about ready to pay him. And again, we literally asked him, like, what do you think is fair? It's not even one of those situations where we just made an offer. We said, what do you think is fair? And he's like, well, what's the condition of it? And I said, the board is dead, so the machine as it stands, without fixing the board, is dead. And he goes, $50. I can't believe I stunned away from everybody. That was so dumb. I could have got 2 kill steals in there. Fail. He comes to pick it up, and he goes... instead of picking up his money, he comes to pick up the machine. He goes, oh, I changed my mind. I'm going to bury it in my backyard. And I go, what? And like the sales guy's face just looks at me and turns. And it's like, yeah, I want to bury it in my backyard. And we're just looking at each other like, did that just happen? Did he seriously just say that he's going to take this device that's $4,000 that, like, I need to replace a fucking current sensing resistor on and bury it? But he was dead serious. And I told that woman, listen, I may have a low-cost board for you. I can't promise anything, but let's see what I can do. And I always try to use those words, let's see what I can do, because it sounds like I want to help you with your problem. I do actually want to help her with her problem, but I'm not committing to anything. So let's see what I can do. That's one of those great terms in life that'll help you a lot. And what I was going to do is I was going to take the board out of that machine and just fucking give it to her. I didn't even plan on charging this woman. I was going to literally take the board out of that machine that I paid $50 for, sell the carcass of that computer for a few $100 on eBay, and just give that woman the board and consider that my good Samaritan thing for the... Again, I'm not going to spend $1,200 on a motherboard for somebody as my good Samaritan thing for the day. But I will. But if I got something for $50, I'll give it away for free. I'll give away something that I got for $50 for free. I am not going to give away something that cost $1,200 that I paid $1,200 for free. Big difference there. Because I know a lot of people are going to go, Louis, why didn't you pay for it, man? That happened a lot with the video I did on the Apple screwing over that army, that guy stationed overseas. Because, you know, our system doesn't allow us to ship to an APO. Like, fuck you, use post office. But everybody's like, Louis, why didn't you bring it to Apple for him? Louis, why didn't you bring it to Louis? I don't have time to bring shit to Apple for people, man. That shit takes hours. And like, well, you don't really care. And it's like, yes, I do care. I care about changing the system. I wanted to change the system with that video so that instead of it being, okay, the next time it happens, send it to Louis so we can go to Apple. See, that's not sustainable. Having 10,000 army troops send their computers to me so that I can take them all to Apple is not fucking sustainable. Having Apple change their policy so that so that they can just send the stuff directly to Apple and have it sent directly back to them, that is sustainable. But nobody thinks about that. They just like to troll. But I digress. I thought I was just going to take this guy's board and just give it to her. And I thought that was a great solution to the whole problem. And then he comes in and says, I don't want to sell it. I want to have a funeral for it in my backyard. And because I followed the moral and ethical thing to do, there is a $4,000 machine somewhere in upstate New York sitting in some spoiled brat's backyard that needs nothing but that literally needs R7051 and R7052 fucking replaced. It'll turn on. It's so ridiculous. And what really got me was the fact that that girl, she never got it fixed, and I checked it a few months later. That blog, that site that she had was never updated. She never did anything with it. She had been replying to the people. She had been making new posts about what's going on. She had been talking to people about the experience. Other people who were having similar experiences with cancer were commenting on the site, and she was replying to them. And it was a great thing. It was a good little site, and it helped people. And I know, like, I do a video on electronics repair sometimes, on these stupid things that are just so not fucking necessary. And I get these comments from people that are like, thank you, this allowed me to make money, or thank you, this helped me out of a jam, thank you. And I know how good that feels. So I can imagine what it's like when you have a terminal, potentially terminal disease, and you read a site where somebody has the same experience as you and helps you through it. That's got to be like 100 times better, or 100 times more useful than the stuff that I do. And that just ended. And I just think about it. If I hadn't done the moral and ethical thing, if I had said, give me a minute, we just have to reassemble your machine before you bury it, and I took her unfixable board and put it in his machine, knowing it's going to go into the fucking ground, because his parents bought him a goddamn new one, and gave her the good board free, that the world would be a better place. She would have probably been able to keep posting to the website up until she, I looked this up, she eventually died, and to the day that she died, she never posted on that site again. And people are going to go, hey, she could always get a new computer, she could do this, she could do that. Guess what? People who have terminal cancer, they probably don't have time to go to Best Buy, they don't have time to reset up all their stuff and remember their fucking passwords if they had it saved in their browser that was on their existing machine. I'm not going to judge people that have cancer on why they do what they do or what they could have done, because that's just I've never been faced with immediate, like, literally you're going to die within a year terminal illness. I'm not going to fucking judge, right? But that's the thing, like, I did the quote-unquote ethical thing, the right thing. I gave the guy back what he brought in. I didn't swap it out. And that guy came in about 9 months later for an iPhone screen repair. His parents live upstate. He goes to college in the area. So he comes in every now and then. And I asked him about it, and he's like, oh yeah, it went great. We took pictures, we buried it. I was this close to asking for his address, because I want to fucking dig up that machine now in 2016 and get R7051 and R7052 replaced and put it in the window, clean it. There's a little bit of dirt, but those things, the screen is sealed well on that. I'll clean it off. Maybe replace the keyboard, blow out the inside. It's a perfectly usable machine. So here's my question to you. As unethical as it is for a computer repair store to take a good component and swap it with a bad one, what are the negative effects in the real world if you know for a 100% fact that that machine is going into the ground? See, I did the ethical thing to do, right? I did the moral and ethical thing because I'm honest and I care and blah, 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 and I don't want to be the scummy douchebag. And I let a $1,200 motherboard literally get buried under dirt that was fixable. And then I let the person who is genuinely doing good for the world, who is encouraging young women who have cancer to, instead of give up, to continue their battle, to feel better about themselves, to feel like they can identify with somebody, that person was not helped. And here's what it comes to with morals and ethics for me. Is I find it doesn't often come down to me caring about doing the right thing. It comes down to people wanting to feel good about the fact that they followed the rules. And to me, it comes off as selfish. See, in that moment, I was being selfish. I want you to think about this. Here's how I see it now, a few years later. I didn't care about that girl. I didn't care about the fact that I could very easily without in any way harming the world or harming anything going on in the world or harming people. I didn't care that I could easily solve several problems and just make the world a better place. What I cared about is that I knew that I was morally untouchable. That I was just this great, above other people person that never does anything wrong. And that moment, it was selfish behavior. It wasn't because I cared about that guy. It wasn't because I cared about what's right. There's a difference between doing what's right and what the world tells you is the right thing. And the right thing is you don't steal parts. You know what the right thing is? You know what the right thing for the world is? Here's the right thing for the world that I think in 2016. The right thing for the world is that the girl who is encouraging people to face and battle their cancer rather than give up from depression have her computer back so that she can continue to do that. Whereas the guy who's burying the computer in the ground can have the motherboard with the dead fucking CPU. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's the way I see it. And the way I see it is it's not always about what's right and wrong. It's about what's right for the world. It's about if I can not hurt anybody else, and while not hurting anybody else, make the world a better place. Should I do that? And you know what really pisses me off right now? You know what really pisses me off is that I know deep down I'm so selfish that if faced with the same situation again, I'd probably let the dead board go on the fucking I would let the board that is fixable go on the ground, and I would let the board that is not fixable at all go back to the girl who has cancer. That's what pisses me off. Like even knowing the way I think right now in 2016, I know that I just don't have it in me. I say I care what others think. I say I don't care what others think of me. I don't care what anybody in the world thinks of me. The only thing that matters is what I think of me. But to some extent, I still care what other people think of me enough that I wouldn't be able to do the immoral thing to better the world. And that kind of pisses me off. Because, again, and I know where this can kind of get into an extreme area or these gray areas where it's like, but Lewis, can't you then say, oh, well, I know how it's easy to go from one evil thing to another, to another, to another. Can't you just say, well, Lewis, how hard is it to go from the kid who's burying his computer to the guy who's just using it to watch porn all day? Well, isn't it better that you steal the stuff from the guy who just uses it to watch porn all day and give it to the cancer girl? I understand. It's easy. If you make one wrong step, one immoral decision, then you can make another and another and another and another. And deep down, that's why I don't do it. Deep down, that's why I don't get into that shit. Because I know that once you do it once you do the bad thing once, then you'll do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again. You don't go from being good to being evil in a step. You go from being good to being evil one little step at a time. And if you can make this step, then you can make this one. If you can make this step, then you can make this one. If you can make this step, you can make this one, and on and on and on. But still, it legitimately pisses me off that I know that I would make that decision again. And it just, just thinking about it makes me sick. And the other one is one I can bring up with this channel. You know, when it comes to ethics and morals, and not even just ethics and morals, but the law. I share schematics. I don't distribute them, but I mean, I show you a picture of the schematic on the screen while I'm working on it to repair a motherboard, right? And what that results in is other people learning. So when you have 1.2 million views per month, you gotta bet that at least a couple of thousand of those people are people who are applying what I'm doing to learn how to fix their own stuff. Again, 1.2 million views a month is the stat now. So how many of those people, if it's even 0.1%, are applying what I'm teaching to keep products out of landfills? Because in the Apple Service Manual, for those of you that wonder why I'm not authorized, like people like Oneness and the people who were trolling me in the Error 53 thread and the $750 Tier 4 thread, the people who were trolling me there were the people who were saying things like, you know, you should be Apple authorized. This guy's pissed off just because he's not Apple authorized, blah, blah, blah. What they don't understand is that steps 6 and 7 in the Apple Service Manual, for almost all these products, step 6 and 7 is replace MLB. Fuse blown, replace MLB. Not charging the battery, replace MLB. And because the main logic board often costs more than the actual worth of the device, what happens in the real world is that it winds up in a landfill. So thousands of people are probably using these videos to fix devices that would otherwise be garbage. And I think we can all agree that working electronics that do their job should not end up in a landfill. Even ending up in e-waste is a shame, but for most people don't e-waste their stuff. They throw it away with the garbage. And all this stuff winds up, eventually it's going to fuck up the environment and blah, blah, blah. It's a bad thing. So what I'm doing in some way, shape, or form, again, not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm definitely not the best human being. It's not like I've done anything amazing for the world. But by me being the insignificant person that I am, putting up a camera over my shoulder and saying, here's how I do my job, I've helped thousands of people keep countless thousands of devices out of landfills. And I do that by displaying schematics on the screen. I show you the schematics software, which I obtained from some FTP site from God knows where, and I show you the board view software where I can tell you, here's how I know that this component goes here on this motherboard. That's software that I'm probably not supposed to have access to. That's not software that I get if I asked Apple for it. That's not software I get if I paid Apple. If I was willing to pay them, they wouldn't give it to me. But this website from somewhere on the internet got a hold of it, and they distributed it. Not me. Some other website distributed it. And then I got access to the file. And then I opened that PDF file in my PDF reader. And then I use that PDF file to show you how the components are laid out on the motherboard. And this is all stuff that, again, I could technically recreate this if I had years of spare time just measuring stuff and drawing it. I could, but that's not practical. So I show you how everything is drawn out, and I use that to teach you how to fix the product. But what I'm doing is morally and ethically wrong because it's against the law. Probably against the law. What I do on this YouTube channel is, I can't say with certainty, but there's a good chance that me taking time out of my day to educate you for free is against the law. Me taking time to contribute to electronics not winding up in a landfill, not destroying and fucking up the environment, is probably against the law. How fucked up is that? And the way that I justify what I do, again, I'm probably not supposed to show you, here's how the current sensing circuit works in this MacBook. Here's how this MacBook detects the battery. Here's how this MacBook's buck converter knows to turn on so that the CPU works, and instead of having a door stop, you have a working computer. When I'm going through those, I'm using the schematic to show you how that works. I'm probably not supposed to be doing that. And again, what is better for the world? Is it better that I follow the letter of the law in the most conservative interpretation possible and I don't show you anything? Or is it better that I take a more liberal interpretation of the law, which probably isn't even the law at all, and decide that I'm going to teach millions of people every month how to repair these products so that we can try to fix the growing e-waste problem, so that we can try to help save the environment, so that we can help people that are maybe in impoverished countries where they can't afford to just replace MLB because main ML logic board is 18 months of the average person's fucking salary. Maybe they can't do that. Maybe we can help these people in these third world countries to have access to technology that they otherwise would not have access to by not throwing it away. What do you think is better for the world? That's kind of how I try to look at morals and ethics. I try to look at it in this way. I'm not hurting somebody, and I'm making the world. Am I making the world a better place? So, am I hurting anybody? Am I making the world a better place? So, with the first example, again, I still feel like I'm being selfish by saying I would make the decision to give the guy who wants to bury his computer back his original board. As silly as it sounds, I would still make that decision. But by what I described as my definition of morals and ethics, the right thing to do would be to ask, okay, do I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that this individual will never bring this to another store, that he will never try to fix it, and that he will never try to sell this or turn it on? If the answer is yes, I'm not hurting anybody by swapping it. And then, am I making the world a better place by swapping it? I sure am. Again, Cancer Girl would have been able to continue her blog. I don't call her that to disrespect her. I genuinely forget the names of both parties, so I'm just calling them whatever. And in this situation, I show you how Apple's current sensing circuit works. I mean, this is the most basic shit in the world, where I show you how this buck converter turns on. I'm not hurting anybody by doing that. Truthfully, I mean, it's not like I've actually hurt somebody or taken away from somebody by showing you how that works. So I can live with myself. And am I making the world a better place? Absolutely. Am I making the world a better place by allowing hundreds of thousands of devices to work again that otherwise would not, by teaching people how to do this? Am I making the world a better place by stimulating the economy, by allowing all these people to learn how to fix this stuff and make money off of it? Yes. We have an e-waste problem. There are hundreds of thousands of devices in landfills that if you replace one fucking resistor on are worth $500. That is an e-waste problem. We're taking an e-waste problem and we're turning it into an opportunity. And technically in our fucked up society in the United States of America, that's against the law. Because in the United States of America, logic doesn't write the law. People don't write the law. 1% writes the law. That's the way it works here. And the 1% says, nah, fuck that, man. We don't want to release this stuff. How dare people fix their own stuff? They got to buy new. That's why we're in the fucked up place we are, where my entire team is dead. Let's see, what is my ratio here? 1 and 3. Yeah, I'm sucking hardcore. I'm not as bad as this dude that's 111, but 1 and 3 is still pretty bad. Now, again, in that situation, if me stealing the PDF required, let's say, hurting somebody or punching somebody in the face, even if doing that would fix the e-waste problem across the globe, even if that would allow hundreds of thousands of people to make a living and lead better lives, I still wouldn't do it, because that requires that I hurt somebody. But since I'm not hurting somebody, I can live with it. And I try to really use that hurt somebody thing in the most strictest interpretation, because I don't want, as I said, you don't go from good to evil in a jump. You go in these little blocks. And it's very important to me that I just never move over. I never go from that first block from here to here. Because as soon as I do, it's all bets are off. But yeah, it's fucked up when you think about it. And it's not even something that I'm making up or bragging about or just... I look at YouTube analytics. I look at my comment section. Thousands of people are fixing boards that otherwise would not be fixing them because of this channel. And that's probably wrong. It's why I don't care about morals and ethics that much. I just try to think about it in my own way. Am I hurting others? Am I hurting other people? Am I screwing other people? Am I helping the world? It's no, yes. I'm good with it. Man, that still kills me to this day. Oh yeah, I was going to sell it to you, but I'd rather just bury it in my backyard. I'm going to hold a funeral for my retina. With one bad resistor. That is some bullshit. That is some real fucking bullshit. There are some companies that are actually upfront and honest with some of this stuff too. I don't mean it in an insulting way. Like Mission Repair has this thing in their terms of service for motherboard repair. If you agree to motherboard repair and you wind up, let's say, having a bad keyboard or bad screen or bad battery, and you decide, okay, well, since it's went over the original estimate, I don't want to pay for the battery or the keyboard or whatever, they will literally take the motherboard that was fixed out of the computer, put a dead one in there, or a placeholder, or nothing, and send it back to you. It's in their terms of service that they do that. It's pretty interesting. But I get how it has to be that way for companies that outsource the board repair. Like, it's different than with me. If I spend time fixing it and everything else winds up being wrong, whatever, I spend 10 minutes of time on it and a 17-cent part. Sucks for me. Okay, you're going to get back a working motherboard inside of a computer with a bad keyboard, screen, battery, and I didn't get paid anything. Okay, it sucks, but again, 17-cent parts, 10 minutes of my time. With the companies that outsource it, they paid $150 to $250 for that board to be fixed. And the company they outsourced the board repair to, they don't give two shits of a fuck about your end customer. They're not going to refund you on a board that they fucking fixed. if Mission sends it to somebody, and because the customer doesn't want to pay anymore, so they have to cover their ass in that way. I've given back so many boards to people fixed because they wound up having a bad keyboard, bad battery, bad screen cable, and all that. And it's like, it literally would take more work for me to destroy your board than it would be for me to just give it back to you. So like, why am I going to take the time to spite the customer and like go above and beyond to remove my jumper, or to kill R7051 and put a dead R7051 back on your board so it doesn't turn on? It's like, that kind of stuff is just, if the work wasn't done, fine, but if the work was already done, why fucking spite for no reason? I remember the crowning moment of me deciding to leave one of the first companies that I worked for doing this professionally. It was a laptop MD. I was there for 4 days. 4 days. And on day 2 or 3, somebody brings in an A1181, and the A1181 is fucked. It was like some type of spill. And they put on the sheet that they're willing to spend up to they had this little sheet. It was the funniest, cutest thing in the world. I can't believe that this ever actually worked. It was literally it was written how much are you willing to spend on fixing this laptop, right? How much are you willing to spend to fix it? And what they would do is they would, of course, always make the quote exactly that amount. It didn't matter what was wrong with your fucking computer. It could have been that, you needed compressed air. If you wrote 300 in that fucking sheet, you were paying $300 for the compressed air. But I remember this person brings in an A1181, and they wrote on the sheet something like 2 or 250, it needed board repair. This was before I had any fucking clue what I'm doing. I want to make that clear. In 2009, I was decent at electronics repair. I had no idea what I was doing when it came to laptop motherboard repair. I was beyond clueless, beyond clueless. Almost as bad at motherboard repair as I am at DOTA. Almost. So, and I just look and I see that there's a component in the board that has it's covered with a big brownish, blackish hole with this soot-looking stuff on it. This is the easiest motherboard repair on earth. It was the motherboard repair for people who don't fix motherboards. It was my lucky day. I go into the dead boards pile. I see there's another motherboard that has that component. It looks kind of similar. I rip it off and I put it on this board that has the hole in it. And it works. Very lucky beginner's luck. I had no clue what I was doing. Again, no credit to me. They told me, well, listen, I appreciate that, but motherboard repair here is $350 to $450, and they put on the sheet that they're only willing to spend $200 to $250. And it says, let's call this person and see what happens. So they call the person, they figure out that they don't want to spend more than $200 to $250. They tell me to break it. They told me to break the fucking person's computer. And that killed me for a couple of reasons. So they had this model back then where it was you get paid $40 for every machine that you fix. And the store keeps the rest. So what is the cost of parts there? I took the part out of a machine that was in this big Tupperware container looking thing. So it was totally dead. So cost of parts is $0. Cost of labor is a fixed $40. So whether you charge, again, there was no hourly, there was no different services get different amount of money. If you fix something, you got $40. If you didn't fix it, you got shit. That was the system. It was a basic flat rate system. It didn't matter how much time went into a job. It didn't matter how much work was required. It didn't matter how much skill was required. It was $40. $40 for advanced board repair, $40 for compressed air. It didn't matter. The tech got $40. That was the system. So their cost was a fixed $40. They could have just said, listen, we don't usually do this. What I would have done is something like this. I would have said, okay, I apologize for this. I understand that you're only willing to spend that much. The technician already went ahead and fixed it. Usually we charge the $450 for it. You already approved $200. We don't usually do board repair for $200, but on this one occasion, you can just take it back at $200. We'll even offer you the full warranty on board repair, but this is not a rate that we can usually honor in the future. This is only because of our error. I would have said something, and it's happened before. It's happened before. Shit like this happens, and the customers are fucking ecstatic when they only approved a lower level service. They needed the higher level service, and you just gave them the higher level service. Nobody ever gets mad at that. Especially since they already pre-approved the $200. So if they had gotten the board repair for that, that's great. So they wanted me to break the board, in which case not only do I receive no $40, But they don't get to receive the $150 to $190 that they would have received if they had just given it back to the fucking customer. They were so stuck on this idea that, no, we need to protect board repair being $350 to $450, that even though you've already fixed it with a $0 parts cost and a $40 labor cost, and this person's willing to spend $250, we're going to fucking break it. And I had already closed the machine. So at this point, it was now my job to reopen that A1181 and fucking destroy it. Which is bullshit. Because I'm not getting paid already, so that sucks, but I'm not getting paid to reopen that thing and fucking break it? Fuck out of here. So I demonstrated to one of the people that it didn't work while I was there. I demonstrated it not working, which for me was they said, look, it's dead now, and I unplugged the battery from the bottom. I had it half unplugged. I was holding it in with my hand, and I said, see, I'm hitting power and it doesn't work. I plugged the battery back in. The customer comes in to pick it up. I wasn't one of the people who dealt with customers, but the other person who did was busy, so I walked up to them and I said, don't tell anybody. The people who work here are fucking douchebags. Here's your working machine. Run out before they notice I get in trouble. That was the last day I worked at Laptop MD. It's like, fuck this. I'm starting my own business and never looking back. Fuck that. I've taken, it's just, ugh. Awful. Oh, absolutely awful. Not a terrible, training ground. It was a good training grounds, that place. 2 or 3 good hires actually came from there. It was like a situation of, okay, so I know this is, this is what you get paid now, right? And this is how much work you do now, right? How about if I can offer you this much pay for this much work? Sure. I wound up with some pretty good and loyal employees. I forget what that, I guess that came from the ethics rant. But like in that situation, you have to think about these things. Technically, the service that they need was listed at something like $400 in their site. Technically, that's the cost of it. Technically, it's wrong for that service to be done cheaper. But then you have to look at the reality of it. To diagnose the problem, I have to fix it. They are willing to pay for half of what that service is worth. I have already fixed the problem. You may be mad at the fact that I fixed the problem. You may be mad at the fact that I didn't get further approval first. But the reality is that the problem was fixed with a $200, again, with a $200 service. The problem was fixed for 0 parts cost and $40 in labor. What do you do now that it's already done? Do you stick to the rules and fucking destroy it, demoralizing the employee, screwing the customer who again could have something that works but now doesn't, and screwing yourself out of spite out of that $190, $150 that you could have had for doing nothing? Or do you give it back to them working and collect the money? It is what it is. But when it comes to rules, morals, and ethics, here's what I can say as I'm just about to lose the game. Do your best to be a good person, and do your best to try to make the world a better place without hurting others. That's all I can say. I wake up every day thinking to myself, how can I make this world a better place without hurting the people in it, without screwing over the people in it? I want to make the world as good a place as I can without screwing people over. That's what I enjoy doing. And if I'm able to do that, I'm happy. I just try to not think about the morals and the ethics and the rules because that gets in the way of it. Because again, what's the rules of 5 years ago that were considered totally okay, tomorrow may be considered something that you can go to prison for. So just try to do the best that you can to be a good human being. That's what I think when it comes to morals, rules, ethics. Blackberry, it's about time for us to go to sleep, isn't it, girl? Isn't it? Yes, I'm incredibly tired. It looks like you are too. Blackberry has been sitting here for 44 minutes and 23 seconds, and 44 minutes and 45 seconds, and she has not fucked with my microphone once. You haven't fucked with my microphone a single time, girl. You must be dead tired. Come here where the camera can see you. Come here, girl. Come here. Good kitty. Good girl. Fuck with the microphone. Good girl. Be yourself. Be a good kitty. Good girl. You screw with that microphone. Roar. Bite it. Bite the microphone. You're so cute. Nuzzle. And that's it for today.